Beneath your feet right now could lie the ruins of a forgotten empire. This is not a fantasy. It is the reality at archaeological sites worldwide, where layers of history reveal one civilization literally built upon another. By the end of this journey, you will see the entire human story in a completely new light, connecting our modern world directly to the footsteps of the past. We will explore how a city can be destroyed by fire only to rise again more magnificent than before, and why a sacred location remains a center of pilgrimage for thousands of years. What does it truly mean to build the future on the bones of the past? The stone steps of the Tower of Jericho ascend from the dust of millennia, a silent witness to an almost unimaginable span of human history. This is not merely an old ruin, it is the heart of one of the world's oldest cities, a place where human settlement took root over 11,000 years ago. The site, a massive artificial mound known as a tell, is like a layer cake of civilizations. At its very base, archaeologists found evidence of some of the first people to transition from wandering hunter-gatherers to settled communities, individuals who began cultivating plants, forging the very beginnings of agriculture. As you move up through the layers, you encounter the formidable stone walls of a powerful Canaanite city, walls that would later become central to a famous biblical story of conflict. Then come the remains of Roman villas, Byzantine churches, and early Islamic palaces, each community building directly atop the foundations of the last. What drew them all here century after century was a simple, life-giving constant, the spring of Elisha. This reliable water source made the location sacred, a perennial reason for people to return and rebuild, ensuring that the story of Jericho was never truly lost, just waiting to be uncovered. This foundational city, built and rebuilt in the same fertile ground, sets the stage for another legendary metropolis whose very existence was once thought to be mere myth, the city of Troy. The legend of Troy speaks of a single, magnificent city besieged for a decade, but the ground at Hisarlik tells a far richer and more tangled story. This great mound in Turkey is not one legendary city, but at least 9 distinct settlements, each constructed directly upon the ruins of its predecessor across 4,000 years. It is a physical timeline, a chronicle written in stone and soil. At the very bottom lies Troy I, a small but fortified early Bronze Age village. As you move upward through the layers, you encounter the vast, wealthy citadel of Troy II, where a glittering cache of gold and artifacts was unearthed, a find once breathlessly claimed to be the treasure of King Priam himself. Higher still, the evidence becomes even more compelling. The layer identified as Troy VII shows clear signs of a violent end, with buildings damaged by fire and projectiles, a stark archaeological echo of the epic tales of siege and conquest sung by Homer. The man who first pierced this mound, Heinrich Schliemann, was a controversial figure whose methods were often destructive, yet his relentless drive proved a vital point. The walls of Troy were not merely poetic fantasy, they were a stratified reality, a place where myth and history are inseparably fused in a cycle of destruction and glorious rebirth. This pattern of a great civilization falling only for another to rise from its ashes is a recurring theme, one we find again on the island of Crete, at the labyrinthine heart of the Minoan world, Knossos. The Palace of Knossos is a sprawling maze of corridors and courtyards that feels less like a ruin and more like a living story. This was the heart of the Minoan civilization, a society so advanced and artistically gifted it stands as Europe's first great culture. The site is not one palace but many, a series of grand structures constructed, shaken apart by earthquakes, and then rebuilt again and again over nearly 1,000 years. Walking through the complex, you see a society that initially thrived in remarkable peace, its walls adorned with breathtaking frescoes of leaping dolphins and graceful athletes, its storerooms overflowing with wealth, all seemingly without the massive defensive walls common to other ancient powers. Then the layers of earth and stone begin to tell a darker, more complex tale. Evidence emerges of a colossal volcanic eruption on the island of Thera, an event that would have choked the skies and shaken the entire Mediterranean. Ash falls and tsunami deposits are found in the strata, followed by signs of a changing culture. The elegant Minoan script gives way to the early Greek language of the Mycenaeans, and the architectural styles shift, hinting at influence and eventual conquest from the mainland. It is from this turbulent fusion of collapse and cultural takeover that a powerful legend was likely born. The later Greeks, gazing upon the immense, confusing ruins of the multi-level palace, might have spun the tale of the Minotaur, a fearsome creature dwelling in a labyrinth from which no one could escape. The real labyrinth was not a mythical prison, but the magnificent, crumbling home of a forgotten civilization, its memory preserved not in history books, but in epic poetry. As the Minoan world faded, its legacy was absorbed, setting the stage for the rise of new powers in the Aegean. From this fusion of cultures, we journey to a city where the divine and the imperial were always intertwined, a place where gods were believed to walk the streets themselves. The very ground of Rome is a testament to its name, the Eternal City. Modern traffic flows over buried temples, and Renaissance fountains are fed by ancient aqueducts. This is not a place where history is set aside in a museum. It is a living, breathing entity where the past is the foundation of the present. The story is most vividly told on the Palatine Hill, the legendary birthplace of the city. Here, archaeologists have peeled back the layers to find the humblest of beginnings, simple Iron Age huts, resting directly beneath the monumental stone floors of imperial palaces built for rulers like Augustus. The Roman Forum, the bustling heart of the ancient world's greatest empire, began not as a grand plaza but as a swampy burial ground. It was drained, filled, and built upon relentlessly, its ground level rising over centuries with each new monument and every reconstruction after devastating fires. This cycle of reuse became a core part of Rome's identity. Medieval Christians repurposed the shell of the Pantheon into a church, saving it from ruin. Renaissance architects, in awe of the past, quarried the marble facing from the Colosseum to build stunning new palaces, literally recycling the grandeur of the old empire to fuel the new. Every time a new subway line is dug or a building's foundation is laid, another piece of this immense 2,800-year story is revealed, proving that in Rome the past is never dead, it is not even past. This deep, tangible connection to a classical heritage was a powerful force, one that also shaped the identity of its great rival in the world of ideas and democracy, the city of Athens. The Acropolis of Athens appears as a timeless monument to human genius, a vision of marble perfection against the sky. Yet the rock itself is a battlefield of memory, scarred by conflict and reshaped by renewal. Long before the Parthenon's majestic columns rose, this hill was the fortified center of a Mycenaean palace, a Bronze Age stronghold whose cyclopean walls still whisper from the foundations. Centuries later, another grand temple stood here, one that was deliberately burned to the ground by Persian forces in the year 480 before Common Era. The breathtaking structures we associate with classical Athens were not an initial creation, but a defiant act of reconstruction. Under the leadership of Pericles, the Athenians did not just rebuild, they reimagined their city's heart as a permanent declaration of their cultural and political power, a testament to their resilience after near total destruction. Below this sacred rock lies the Agora, the bustling civic heart where democracy was born. Here, the layers tell an even broader story. Excavations reveal a continuous thread of life from the Bronze Age through to Roman and Byzantine times. In one poignant layer, statues of Roman emperors were erected respectfully beside those of revered Greek philosophers, a powerful illustration of how a conquering culture could absorb and venerate the intellectual legacy of the one it surpassed. The story of Athens is not one of a single golden age, but of an enduring intellectual flame, passed like a torch through vastly different political eras, from military defeat to cultural absorption, yet never extinguished. This theme of a city maintaining its sacred significance through immense change guides us next to a city of biblical kings, a place where the divine and the royal were inseparable for millennia. Jerusalem is a city where the very air feels thick with memory. It is a spiritual anchor for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and its ground tells the story of that profound, unbroken significance. The journey into its depths begins in the city of David, the original settlement that predates the familiar walls of the old city. Here, archaeologists have uncovered massive stone fortifications from a Canaanite city that stood nearly 4,000 years ago. These are the foundations upon which the legends of Israelite kings were built, the very bedrock associated with the reigns of David and Solomon. As the city grew, so did its monumental heart. The Herodian kings, in a display of immense ambition, reshaped the very mountain upon which the city stood. They constructed the vast platform of the Temple Mount, its iconic western wall, a mere retaining structure for an earth-filled project of staggering scale, built directly over and around the sacred sites of previous generations. This cycle of destruction and devout reconstruction defines Jerusalem's story. The city was taken, its temples and churches shattered by Roman legions, only to be rebuilt with golden domes by Byzantine emperors. It was transformed again by Umayyad caliphs, its conquest marked by the stunning dome of the rock, and later fought over by Crusaders and Ottomans, each leaving an indelible mark on the city's architecture and soul. Today, this layered reality is breathtakingly tangible. Deep beneath the modern streets, archaeological tunnels follow Roman-era roads, stones trodden by countless feet 2,000 years ago. Directly above, in the vibrant souks, the medieval city is alive with the sounds of merchants and pilgrims. Jerusalem is the ultimate historical palimpsest, a manuscript where ancient text is never fully erased, but written over again and again, each word sacred, each layer charged with meaning. This profound sense of a city maintaining its spiritual purpose across millennia is a powerful echo of another ancient center of pilgrimage, one that has drawn seekers to the banks of the Ganges for ages. The stone steps of the Varanasi Ghats descend directly into the current of time itself. This is not a city built upon ruins, it is a city woven from them, a tapestry of devotion and daily life spun over 3,000 years. Legend says the god Shiva established this sacred ground, and the physical evidence nearly matches the myth, with archaeological layers confirming its status as one of the planet's oldest living cities. It has been torn down by invaders and reshaped by rulers from powerful Hindu dynasties to Mughal emperors, yet its core purpose has never been erased. Each time a temple was lost, another was built upon its foundation, the spiritual significance of the location overriding any physical destruction. The riverfront is a living, breathing archive. The very soil beneath the modern city is not ordinary earth, but a compacted record of countless rituals, offerings, and the accumulated traces of human existence. This makes Varanasi unique, a place where archaeology and active faith are inseparable, where every grain of dust seems to hold a story of cultural endurance. From this timeless spiritual center, our journey takes a dramatic turn toward a city engineered for worldly dominance, the legendary metropolis of Babylon. The name Babylon alone carries the weight of legend, a whisper of hanging gardens and a tower meant to reach the heavens. Yet the reality on the ground is a sprawling, sun-baked tell of crumbling mud brick, a monument not to fantasy, but to the raw, cyclical nature of imperial power. This was the capital of not one, but two world-changing empires. Deep within its oldest layers rests the legacy of Hammurabi, the king who unified Mesopotamia under the stark, revolutionary principle of written law. Centuries later, the city experienced a spectacular rebirth under Nebuchadnezzar II, whose armies reshaped the ancient world and whose conquest of Jerusalem became a pivotal moment in history. The archaeological record shows a city that refused to die. After its periods of dominance, it would fade, only to be resurrected as a prized provincial capital for a succession of foreign rulers, from the Persians to the Parthians. Each new power that occupied this ground understood its symbolic potency. They did not merely build upon the ruins, they actively appropriated the palaces and temples of their predecessors, using the physical legacy of Babylon to legitimize their own right to rule. Even Alexander the Great, at the peak of his power, saw this city as the future heart of his global empire, his own story tragically ending within its walls. Babylon is the ultimate story of Mesopotamian supremacy, a cycle of rise and fall where every new civilization sought to write its chapter on the same hallowed ground, borrowing the prestige of the past to build its own future. This relentless pattern of one empire absorbing the symbols of another to cement its power finds a stunning parallel further east, in the ceremonial heart of ancient Persia. The vast stone terrace of Persepolis was not merely a foundation, it was a declaration. Built on a massive, man-made platform carved from a mountain's foot, this ceremonial capital was designed from the ground up to be the dazzling heart of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Founded by King Darius I around 518 years before the Common Era, its very location was a statement of power, a new center for an empire that stretched from the Nile to the Indus River. The grand audience halls and palaces that crowned this terrace were a living museum of the empire's incredible diversity. Here, artistic styles from conquered lands were not erased but deliberately incorporated. You can see Egyptian-inspired bull capitals, Mesopotamian-style reliefs, and Ionic Greek column designs all working in harmony. The famous stairway reliefs depict a continuous procession of delegates from every corner of the empire, each bringing tribute, their distinct clothing and offerings meticulously carved into the stone, a permanent record of a vast multicultural state. This was not just a palace, it was a stage for the ritual of imperial unity. Yet this magnificent symbol of power met a fiery end. In 330 before Common Era, the armies of Alexander the Great swept through, and the great palaces were set ablaze. The charred remains were eventually buried by wind-blown sediment and forgotten by history, their memory preserved only in local legend as the throne of Jamshid, a mythical name for a very real place. For centuries, it was a ghost city, a story whispered in the dust. Then, archaeologists began to carefully peel back the layers, revealing the scorched but still glorious ruins beneath. Persepolis today is a layered monument to cultural fusion and the stark reality of imperial collapse, a place where the grand vision of one civilization was literally built upon the artistic traditions of all the others it encompassed. This intricate blending of cultures into a new imperial identity did not end with Persia. it echoes powerfully in the story of a city where East met West in the heart of Anatolia. The streets of Çatalhöyük were not on the ground but across its rooftops. This sprawling Neolithic settlement in Anatolia, one of the world's first major experiments in urban living, presents a puzzle unlike any other. Dating back to around 7,500 years before the Common Era, its structure was entirely horizontal, a dense honeycomb of mud-brick homes packed so tightly together that residents moved between them by walking across the roofs, descending into their living spaces through openings with wooden ladders. This was a community that turned inward, a collection of individual family units that created a collective whole without the need for streets, palaces, or grand public squares. The rhythm of life here was governed by a unique cycle of renewal. When a house grew old or a family's circumstances changed, the dwelling was not simply abandoned. It was carefully and ritually cleaned, its main posts pulled out, and then the entire structure was intentionally filled with earth and clay. A new home was then constructed directly atop this solid, prepared foundation, using the walls of the old house as a sturdy base. This practice continued for centuries, generation after generation, slowly raising the entire settlement until it formed a massive artificial mound over 20 meters high. The layers of Çatalhöyük are not just strata of dirt and debris, they are a perfectly preserved time capsule of a revolutionary way of life. Inside these sealed rooms, archaeologists have uncovered vibrant wall paintings, some of the earliest known artistic expressions of their kind, depicting hunting scenes and abstract patterns. They have found intricate clay figurines and religious shrines adorned with the skulls and horns of wild bulls, suggesting a deep, symbolic connection to the animal world and perhaps a shared belief system. Remarkably, the evidence points to a society with little sign of social hierarchy. No one lived in a palace, and no one was buried in a pauper's grave. The homes are uniformly similar in size and wealth, and the treatment of individuals in death appears consistent, hinting at a community where status was surprisingly equal. Çatalhöyük represents the very dawn of the urban dream, a place where the first farmers did not just build houses, they built a lasting legacy, quite literally raising their children upon the field in homes of their grandparents. This foundational act of building the future directly upon the past, of creating permanence from cycles of renewal, would eventually give rise to societies of immense scale and hierarchy, leading us to the riverbanks of the Nile and a city of legendary pharaohs. The sprawling fields near modern Cairo hold the ghost of a city that once ruled the world. Memphis was not merely an ancient Egyptian capital, it was the very engine of the state for over 3,000 years, a duration so vast it defies modern comprehension. Founded by the legendary first pharaoh means around 3,100 years before the Common Era, this was the administrative and religious heart that pulsed with the rhythm of the Nile. The archaeological site today is a testament to impermanence itself, a vast, open-air field where the layers of history are not stacked high in a tell, but spread wide and deep beneath the sand. Generations of pharaohs, from the pyramid builders of the Old Kingdom to the empire-forging rulers of the New Kingdom, all left their mark here, each adding to and rebuilding the great temple complexes dedicated to Ptah, the creator god of this ancient metropolis. Just on the horizon, the Saqqara necropolis rises from the desert, a city of the dead that charts the very evolution of immortality. The step pyramid of Djoser, the first colossal stone structure of its kind, stands as a revolutionary prototype, a staircase to the heavens that set the stage for the geometric perfection of Giza. Yet, even Memphis could not endure forever. The shifting centers of power moved north to Alexandria and later the new Islamic capital of Cairo, leaving the old capital to be quarried for its stone and slowly buried by time. Today, a colossal limestone statue of Ramesses II lies fallen in a protective museum, its immense scale a silent, sobering echo of the city's former glory. The story of Memphis is one of breathtaking longevity, a longevity mirrored by its great southern rival, the city of 100 gates, Thebes. The modern city of Luxor hums with life directly over the silent stones of ancient Thebes. Here, the distinction between past and present dissolves entirely. Thebes was not just a capital, it was the beating heart of Egypt during its most powerful eras, a duality reflected in its very geography. On the east bank of the Nile, the domain of the living, stand the colossal temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor. These were not built in a single lifetime by a single ruler. They are living, growing monuments in their own right, a 2,000-year-long conversation in stone. Each pharaoh sought to outdo his predecessors, adding new towering gateways, vast courtyards, and needles of granite that pierced the sky, all to demonstrate their devotion to the gods and secure their legacy. The result is an architectural timeline you can walk through, where the styles of different dynasties stand side by side, each layer a new chapter in an unending story of faith and power. Across the river on the west bank lay the city of the dead. In the secluded, sun-scorched valley of the kings, rulers sought eternal security in tombs carved deep into the limestone cliffs. Yet even here the past was crowded. Later tomb builders, digging new passages for their own eternal resting places, would sometimes accidentally break through into the hidden chambers of long-forgotten pharaohs, a literal collision of dynasties in the dark. Thebes endured cycles of immense wealth and devastating hardship, sacked by foreign armies yet always rising again to serve a new purpose. It became a vital provincial center under Roman rule, and later, its ancient tombs were repurposed as chapels and dwellings by Coptic Christian communities. This continuous sacred use for over 4 millennia created an archaeological landscape of unparalleled density, where pharaonic inscriptions share wall space with Roman frescoes and Coptic crosses. Thebes is a place where history does not exist in separate layers, but is fused together in a single, magnificent tapestry. From this timeless fusion of life, death, and divinity on the Nile, we cross the Mediterranean to a city where commerce and legend were built from the sea. The soil of Carthage holds the echoes of a very specific, chilling command. Carthage must be destroyed, and in the year 146 before Common Era, the Roman Republic made good on that vow, systematically dismantling the great Phoenician city, razing its walls and sowing its fields with salt. For a generation, the site lay desolate, a haunted monument to the absolute finality of Roman vengeance. Yet the story did not end there. The strategic genius of the location, a perfect harbor on the North African coast, was too powerful to ignore. A century later, the Romans themselves returned, not as destroyers but as builders. They laid out a new, magnificent city directly over the ashes of the old, its straight, grid-like streets and grand forums deliberately imposed upon the obliterated Punic plan. This is the stark, dual reality archaeologists uncover here. Just beneath the stones of a Roman theater, you find the foundations of Punic homes. Underneath a Roman villa's mosaic floor, you can trace the outline of a Carthaginian Tophet, a sacred precinct. The famous circular military harbor, once the engine of a maritime empire that challenged Rome, was filled in and built over, its very memory erased by the new civic order. Carthage's layers are a masterclass in the transformative power of conquest, a cycle of annihilation and ideological rebirth where the new regime literally built its identity upon the physical and symbolic ruin of its greatest rival. This Roman pattern of erasing a rebellious past to construct a loyal future was repeated across the empire, from the sun-scorched coast of Africa to the misty hills of a distant northern province. The dark, waterlogged earth beneath London's financial district holds secrets far older than any stock ticker. This is the ground of Londinium, a Roman frontier town that grew into a vital node of a global empire. After the Roman legions landed in the year 43 of the Common Era, they chose this spot on the River Thames for its strategic potential, building a bustling port, a grand forum for commerce, and an amphitheater for the games that defined their culture. Remarkably, you can stand in the vaults of a modern wine bar today and run your hand over the same ancient amphitheater wall, feeling the cool, rough texture of stones once roared on by Roman citizens. The archaeological record here tells a story of fiery rebellion, a distinct, dark layer of burned debris, preserved like a fossilized scar, marks the moment when the Iceni queen Boudica led her forces in a furious revolt, reducing the fledgling city to smoldering ash. But like so many sites we have seen, the location's importance was too great to abandon. The Romans simply rebuilt, laying out a new, even more prosperous city atop the charred remains. When Roman authority finally crumbled and the legions departed, the story of this place shifted but did not end. A new Saxon settlement, known as Lundenwic, sprouted a short distance to the west, a temporary move that reflected the uncertainty of the age. Yet the pull of history is powerful. The defensive walls the Romans had left behind proved too valuable to ignore. Viking raiders and later Norman conquerors saw their worth, reoccupying the old Roman core and setting London back on its original, 2,000-year-old foundations. This unbroken chain of habitation means the city's entire timeline is physically stacked, a vertical metropolis. A stunning medieval church like St. Magnus the Martyr rests directly upon the foundations of a Roman temple, while the deep pilings for skyscrapers like the Gherkin slice cleanly through strata containing everything from Tudor pottery to Victorian clay pipes. London is not just built on its history, it is in constant physical conversation with it, a northern outpost of empire whose legacy was cemented, layer by layer, into the very ground. This pattern of a city's core identity persisting through immense cultural shifts guides us back across the Atlantic to a metropolis that rose from the heart of an ancient lake. The Avenue of the Dead cuts a silent, majestic path through the ruins of a metropolis that time forgot. This grand thoroughfare, flanked by the Pyramid of the Moon and dominated by the colossal Pyramid of the Sun, was a ghostly relic even to the Aztecs who named it over 600 years after its abandonment. When they first laid eyes on these monumental structures, they could not conceive of a human hand building them, believing instead this was the divine work of giants, the very place where the gods gathered to create the sun and the moon. They called it Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, and they began making pilgrimages to its sacred, empty plazas. This act of reverence transformed the site into a living part of their own cosmology. They adopted its deities like the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl and mirrored its architectural styles in their own capital, Tenochtitlan. A civilization at the peak of its power was, in essence, building its spiritual identity upon the physical and symbolic ruins of one that had come before, a predecessor whose name and language were already lost to the ages. The original builders of Teotihuacan remain one of history's great enigmas. From its beginnings around 100 years before the Common Era, it grew into one of the largest cities on Earth, a meticulously planned urban center that housed over 100,000 people from diverse cultural backgrounds. Its art and architecture show influences from across Mesoamerica, yet no single ruler's palace has been definitively identified, and its writing system remains largely undeciphered. Its power was not expressed through the glorification of a king, but through the sheer, overwhelming scale of its public architecture and the harmonious order of its grid. Then, around the middle of the 6th century, the city's core was ritually desecrated and burned, and its population scattered. The reason for this sudden collapse is still debated, a mystery locked within the stones. The Aztecs, inheriting this magnificent puzzle, did not solve it, but they honored it, ensuring that the legacy of Teotihuacan would be woven directly into the fabric of the empires that followed. This profound pattern of a later culture venerating the monumental ruins of its predecessors finds an even more dramatic expression just a short journey away, at the Great Pyramid of Cholula. From a distance, it looks like a quiet, grass-covered hill with a beautiful colonial church perched serenely on its summit. But this gentle slope in Mexico is an illusion, a verdant cloak thrown over the largest monument ever constructed by human hands. The Great Pyramid of Cholula is not a single structure, but a staggering accumulation of ambition and faith, a Russian nesting doll of temples built over a period of more than 1,000 years. Beginning around 300 years before the Common Era, a succession of cultures saw this as a place of ultimate spiritual power. The Olmec Xicalaca people began the process, erecting a temple to honor their god of rain. Then, as new groups like the Toltec Chichimca rose to influence, they did not destroy the old sacred site. They enacted a profound ritual of renewal, constructing a newer, larger, and more magnificent temple directly over the existing one, encasing the old within the new. This cycle repeated itself again and again, each generation adding another layer until the original pyramid was completely enveloped, and the entire complex grew into the colossal artificial mountain that dominates the landscape today. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they understood the power of this place intuitively. To them, this massive mound was not just a pagan relic, it was the spiritual heart of the region. In a move of profound symbolic conquest, they built the Church of Our Lady of the Remedies directly on the flattened summit. The result is a breathtaking, tangible fusion of two worlds, where the bells of a Spanish colonial church ring out from the peak of a pre-Columbian temple mountain. It is one of the most powerful visual statements of cultural superimposition in the world, a place where the sacred geography of one civilization was deliberately and permanently fused with that of another. This pattern of building new beliefs directly upon ancient foundations is a global phenomenon, one that echoes with striking clarity high in the Andes Mountains. The stonework of Cusco is a language in itself, a testament to an empire that saw its capital as a living, sacred entity. Long before the Incas raised their monumental walls, the Quilc culture had already established a settlement on this high Andean ground. The Incas, in their turn, did not simply erase this past, they built upon it, mastering the landscape with an almost supernatural skill in stone. They planned their entire city in the shape of a puma, a powerful spiritual guardian, with the fortress of Sacsayhuaman forming the head and the central plaza the heart. Their polygonal masonry, with enormous stones cut to fit together without mortar so perfectly that not even a blade of grass can slip between them, was designed to withstand the constant tremors of the earth. This was architecture as both engineering and ideology, a declaration of unshakable order and power. Then came the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, and a new chapter was written not by demolition, but by superimposition. The conquistadors understood that to conquer a culture, they must command its sacred spaces. They did not tear down the magnificent Coricancha, the temple of the sun sheathed in gold that was the spiritual center of the Inca world. Instead, they built the Church of Santo Domingo directly upon its flawless stone foundations. You can stand in Cusco today and see this fusion with your own eyes, the smooth, curved wall of the temple meeting the rough, angular stone of the colonial church rising above it. This was not just a practical reuse of excellent construction, It was a profound symbolic act. The new colonial city, with its mansions and plazas, was quite literally supported by the unyielding bones of the empire it had supplanted. The city became a palimpsest of power, where the footsteps of a Spanish priest echo in a courtyard defined by stones placed for an Inca emperor. From this imperial heart, the Incas stretched their reach along a backbone of stone, creating a network that connected their vast domain to one of the world's most famous and mysterious sites. The story of Machu Picchu is not one of stone stacked upon older stone, but of meaning layered upon meaning. Perched high in the Andean cloud forest, this citadel was never truly lost to the local Quechua people, yet for the wider world it remained a secret, its stonework slowly embraced by roots and vines. When historian Hiram Bingham was led to the site in 1911, he was not uncovering a city in the traditional sense, he was adding a powerful new chapter to its existence. His expedition, fueled by a quest for the last Inca stronghold of Vilcabamba, instead revealed a masterpiece of imperial architecture, a royal estate believed to have been constructed for the Emperor Pachacuti. This moment of modern discovery transformed Machu Picchu from a silent, overgrown ruin into a global symbol of Inca genius and enigmatic beauty, a place where the narrative of a sophisticated civilization could no longer be ignored. But the true layers of Machu Picchu are not just in its 20th century rediscovery, they are in its original design. The Incas did not conquer this mountain ridge, they conversed with it. The entire site is a breathtaking dialogue between human ambition and the sacred landscape. Temples and terraces align with the precise movements of the sun during solstices, and its most revered structures are carved directly from the living bedrock, as if the mountain itself were being invited to become part of the architecture. This was not a city imposed upon the land, but one woven into its spiritual fabric, honoring a pre-existing geography of sacred peaks and ancient pathways that long predated the Inca Empire itself. Machu Picchu teaches us that the most profound layers of history are not always physical, they can be conceptual, a layering of purpose, memory, and sacred connection that transcends the simple passage of time. This profound integration of human creation with a venerated natural world finds a stunning parallel across the globe in the jungle-shrouded temples of Angkor. The jungle canopy of Angkor does not merely hide these temples, it has become a part of them, a living, breathing layer of history itself. This sprawling network of stone and water was the magnificent heart of the Khmer Empire for over 6 centuries, a metropolis so vast it functioned as an entire hydraulic civilization. At its core, Angkor Wat rises not just as a temple, but as a microcosm of the universe, its iconic 5 towers representing the peaks of the mythical Mount Meru. Originally consecrated as a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu, its walls are adorned with intricate bas-reliefs depicting epic scenes from ancient texts. Yet, as you walk its galleries, a subtle transformation unfolds. Over time, the temple gracefully evolved, its central purpose shifting to honor the Buddha. Statues of Vishnu were not torn down but respectfully repositioned, and Buddhist stupas were erected within the sacred space. This religious layering is a constant theme throughout Angkor. The later city of Angkor Thom, a massive walled complex built by the great King Jayavarman VII, was constructed directly over the ruins of an earlier royal center. Its entrance gates, featuring the serene, colossal faces of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara looking out to the 4 cardinal directions, were a powerful Buddhist statement made upon a reclaimed landscape. What truly powered this empire, however, was not just faith but water. The entire region is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, a complex web of massive reservoirs called barrays and intricate canals that tamed the monsoon rains, allowing for multiple rice harvests a year and supporting a population of perhaps 1 million people. The layers here are not only of faith and stone, but of brilliant human adaptation to a challenging environment. When the empire eventually declined, the jungle moved in, its roots slowly and patiently wrapping around the stonework, not to destroy it, but to hold it in a centuries-long embrace. This grand cycle of a water-powered civilization rising and then being reclaimed by nature finds a powerful echo in a very different desert landscape, where another empire built its legacy not with reservoirs but with trade routes and rock-cut monuments. The stone of Petra holds the color of a desert sunset, a secret city carved not from the ground but directly into the living rock. This was the ingenious capital of the Nabatean Arabs, a people who mastered the art of survival in one of the world's most arid landscapes. Their genius lay not in stacking stones high, but in channeling water with a precision that turned a barren canyon into a lush, thriving metropolis. They were the gatekeepers of the incense trade, their wealth flowing from caravans laden with frankincense and myrrh that snaked through the narrow Sikh gorge. The magnificent facades we associate with Petra, like the iconic treasury, were not palaces but elaborate, deeply symbolic tombs, their classical columns and pediments a deliberate advertisement of the Nabateans' sophistication and their connection to the wider Hellenistic world. This cultural fluidity paved the way for the next great layer. When the Roman Empire formally annexed the kingdom in the year 106 of the Common Era, Petra did not crumble, it transformed. The Romans imposed their own order, paving a grand colonnaded street and carving a massive theater capable of seating thousands directly into the canyon's heart, a stunning fusion of Roman civic ambition and Nabatean rock-cut artistry. As the centuries turned, the city's purpose shifted once more. When Christianity spread across the empire, Petra became the seat of a Byzantine bishop. Its ancient tombs, once built for wealthy merchants, were repurposed as places of Christian worship, and new churches with intricate mosaic floors were constructed alongside them. A single location, originally a necropolis for one faith, became a cathedral for another. Petra's eventual decline was not the result of war, but of a changing world. A devastating earthquake shook its foundations, and new sea-based trade routes bypassed the old caravan trails. The city was gradually abandoned, its memory preserved only by local Bedouin tribes. For the Western world, it became a legend, a ghost city lost to the sands until its dramatic reintroduction in the 19th century. Petra's story is a masterclass in cultural endurance, proving that a city's greatest strength can be its ability to serve new masters and new gods without ever losing its essential, breathtaking soul. This remarkable adaptability is the lifeblood of any great crossroads, a quality equally vital for the next metropolis on our journey, a city where the wealth of continents once converged. The silent, curving walls of Great Zimbabwe rise from the earth with a quiet, undeniable authority. This name, simply meaning stone houses, speaks to a monumental achievement, the largest ancient structure found anywhere south of the vast Sahara Desert. Constructed by the Shona people across 4 centuries, from the 11th to the 15th, this was the heart of a kingdom whose influence stretched across the Indian Ocean trade networks. Its power was built on a foundation of gold and ivory, resources that flowed from the African interior to the waiting ships of merchants on the Swahili coast. The city itself is a sprawling testament to this growing wealth and political mastery, divided into 3 distinct but connected areas. The oldest section, the hill complex, crowns a granite summit, likely serving as a royal residence and a spiritual center. Below, the valley complex contains the remains of more humble, mud brick dwellings, hinting at the daily life of a bustling community. But it is the great enclosure that truly captures the imagination, a vast elliptical space defined by a breathtaking, high wall built without a single drop of mortar. The granite blocks are so perfectly cut and fitted that they have withstood centuries of weather, their elegant, chevron-patterned decorations still tracing the curves of the architecture. The layers of construction here do not tell a story of one civilization replacing another, but of a single, homegrown culture evolving and expanding in its own homeland. You can see the city's story in the stonework itself, with earlier, rougher foundations giving way to the sophisticated, gravity-defying curves of the later walls, a clear reflection of a society reaching its peak. When the city's central power eventually faded, its story was far from over. For the local Shona peoples, the ruins never lost their sacred and symbolic weight. They remained a place of spiritual connection and a tangible link to a glorious past. This enduring legacy proved so powerful that when the modern nation sought a name that embodied its pre-colonial heritage and strength, there was only one choice: Zimbabwe. In this way, the physical layers of stone and earth were transformed into the very foundational layers of a national identity, a permanent reminder that the most enduring ruins are not just monuments to what was lost, but blueprints for what can be remembered and reclaimed. Across the sea from this African capital of stone, another island civilization would carve its own lasting legacy into the face of a remote, windswept land. High on the sun-baked mesas of Colorado, an entire civilization made a dramatic decision to move its world from the open sky to the sheltering rock. For centuries, the ancestral Puebloan people thrived on the flat tablelands, cultivating crops and living in communities of pit houses, semi-subterranean homes dug into the earth. Then, around the year 1200, something profound shifted. They began an incredible architectural migration, descending into the canyon alcoves to construct the breathtaking cliff dwellings that define Mesa Verde. This was not a random retreat, but a deliberate, communal effort to adapt. The towering sandstone cliffs offered natural protection from the elements and from social pressures, while the deep, overhanging alcoves provided a ready-made roof and a strategic defensibility. The layers of their society are etched directly into these vertical cities. In a place like Cliff Palace, you can see the story of a growing community told in stone and mortar, with rooms stacked 3 and 4 stories high, added one beside and on top of another over generations. Kivas, the circular, underground chambers used for spiritual and social gatherings, were dug into the canyon floor, their sacred space preserved even as the village grew upward around them. This remarkable adaptation, however, had its limits. Within a century of building these marvels, by the year 1300, the entire region was silent. A prolonged and severe drought, a climatic shift recorded in tree rings, likely made sustenance impossible. Facing this environmental hardship, the people made the decision to migrate, moving south to where water was more reliable. They left behind their magnificent homes not in a state of panic, but with a sense of order, creating an almost perfect time capsule. The dry desert air and the sheer inaccessibility of the cliff faces acted as perfect preservatives, freezing a moment in time. Mesa Verde is not a story of a civilization ending, but of a people making a calculated, difficult choice to ensure their survival, leaving behind a stunning monument to human ingenuity in the face of a changing world. This profound relationship between a society and its environment, and the difficult choices that relationship demands, finds a powerful echo in the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula. The great earthen pyramids of Cahokia rise from the fertile floodplain, silent sentinels of a metropolis that once rivaled London in population. Across the Mississippi from today's St. Louis, this was the towering heart of a vast, sophisticated civilization, a city built not from stone but from earth and human ambition. Its centerpiece, Monk's Mound, is a colossal feat of engineering, a platform mound with a base larger than that of the Great Pyramid of Giza, all constructed basketful by basketful of soil. The history of Cahokia is literally layered within these mounds. Archaeologists have found that they were not built in a single effort, but grew over generations. Using advanced techniques like electrical resistivity, they have peered inside Monk's Mound to discover a series of distinct, smaller mounds that were gradually enveloped by later expansions, each new layer representing a new chapter of ceremonial purpose and communal effort. This was a true melting pot of ancient North America. Artifacts uncovered from the site reveal a web of connections stretching across the continent, from seashells of the Gulf Coast to copper from the Great Lakes and finely crafted arrowheads from the Ozarks, all converging in this bustling, planned urban center with its central plaza and wooden stockade. Then, by the 1400s, the city was largely empty. The reasons are complex, a combination of environmental shifts and social changes that led its people to disperse. But the memory of this place did not vanish. Later Native American nations, including the Osage, have oral traditions that speak of their origins being linked to a great city of mounds, suggesting that the physical ruins of Cahokia were overlaid with a powerful cultural layer of memory and story, a spiritual inheritance from a lost world. From the earthen pyramids of the Mississippi, our path leads to the windswept coasts of the far north, to a settlement founded by sea rovers at the very edge of the known world. The very ground at Thingvellir is pulling itself apart. This is not a metaphor, but a physical reality, a place where you can stand between continents, with the North American plate on one side and the Eurasian plate on the other. This dramatic rift valley in Iceland presents a unique form of layering, where the deep time of geology directly cradles the birth of a nation. The cliffs and fissures are not just a backdrop, they are the foundational stage. In the year 930, chieftains from across the island chose this very spot, with its natural amphitheater of rock and its echoing acoustics, to establish the Althing. This was one of the earliest parliamentary assemblies in the world, a gathering where laws were recited from the Lögberg or law rock, and disputes were settled for the entire community. For centuries, this was the beating heart of the Icelandic Commonwealth, a layer of sophisticated governance laid directly upon a raw geological wound. Even after the Althing lost its political functions and moved to the modern capital of Reykjavik, the power of this place did not fade, it transformed. Later generations returned to build churches and raise memorials on this hallowed ground, adding new layers of national memory and identity to the ancient site. Thingvellir teaches us that the most enduring stages for human history are often shaped by forces far greater than ourselves, where the slow, inexorable drift of continents can create a natural platform for democracy itself. From this land where the earth itself is a living chronicle, our journey concludes in the land of the rising sun, where a city was built to mirror the cosmos. Kyoto stands apart, a city that chose memory over ruin. For over 1,000 years as the imperial capital, it cultivated a different kind of historical layer, one woven not from rubble and conquest, but from meticulous preservation and faithful repetition. Its original grid, laid out in the late 8th century, still guides the flow of modern life, a testament to a plan so enduring it became the city's permanent skeleton. This is not a place where one civilization buried another, but where one civilization made a profound commitment to its own perpetual renewal. The wooden temples that dot the hillsides, like the iconic Kiyomizu-dera with its vast stage overlooking the canopy, have been lost to fire and conflict not once but many times. Yet each time they were resurrected not as modern interpretations, but as perfect replicas, using the same ancient joinery techniques and designs passed down through generations of master craftsmen. This creates a breathtaking form of continuity. The vermilion gates of Fushimi Inari, snaking up the mountain in their thousands, have been replaced gate by gate over centuries, yet the experience for a pilgrim walking that path today is fundamentally the same as it was 500 years ago. The layers here are not stacked vertically in the earth, but exist horizontally in time, a continuous thread of cultural memory maintained through an unbroken chain of ritual, festival, and exacting reconstruction. Kyoto represents a conscious, collective decision to keep a civilization alive, ensuring that the refined aesthetic and spiritual world of Heian period Japan is not a relic to be excavated, but a living, breathing layer of the contemporary city. It offers a powerful final thought on our journey, that the story of human history is not only written in the stones of what we build over, but just as profoundly in the enduring spirit of what we choose against all odds to keep. These recurring patterns across the globe form a profound truth about our collective story. The sacred geography of a spring or a mountain does not fade with the civilization that first named it holy. Instead, each new culture recognizes that same spiritual power, building their own temples and churches directly upon the foundations of the old. It is an unspoken acknowledgement that the divine presence in a place does not belong to any one people, but to the location itself, drawing generation after generation back to the same hallowed ground. Just as powerful is the relentless logic of geography. A reliable water source, a natural harbor, or a defensible hilltop will always be a precious resource. The practical advantages that drew the first settlers to Jericho or Londinium were just as compelling 1,000 years later, creating an irresistible pull that ensured the site would be reoccupied, no matter how many times it fell. Newcomers did not have to start from scratch. They inherited the wisdom of location chosen by those who came before. This leads to the most deliberate layer of all, the political statement written in stone. When a Roman city rose from the ashes of Carthage, or a Spanish church was anchored to the walls of the Coricancha, it was far more than simple reuse. It was a calculated act of ideological conquest, a way for a new power to proclaim its dominance by physically and symbolically harnessing the legacy of the old. By building their own future upon the monumental bones of a vanquished rival, they absorbed that past prestige and declared their own era had begun. Ultimately, these stratified cities become our greatest archive of human resilience. The layers hold silent testimony to how societies met incredible challenges, from the prolonged drought that led to the migration from Mesa Verde to the volcanic ash that reshaped Minoan Crete. They show us not just the rise and fall of empires, but the enduring, adaptable spirit of communities who faced environmental shifts and social transformations, making difficult choices to ensure their survival. What we uncover in the dust is not a collection of disconnected stories, but a single, continuous narrative of humanity, each chapter firmly rooted in the one that came before. Our journey across 25 sites has painted a clear and powerful picture that civilization is never a clean slate. It is a continuous, unbroken process of building, borrowing, and rebuilding upon the foundations of everything that came before. From the revolutionary rooftop community of Çatalhöyük to the imperial splendor of Rome and the sacred, carefully preserved continuity of Kyoto, each layer of earth and stone tells a universal story of human ambition, adaptation, and resilience. These sites are far more than silent relics. They are active, breathing lessons in the long arc of history. They remind us with quiet insistence that our own modern cities and cultures are not isolated achievements. They are simply the latest chapter in an immense, ongoing story, a story written one generation at a time in the very ground beneath our feet. We are all, right now, living atop these deep layers of history. I would love to hear which of these layered places you find most fascinating. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into our shared past, please subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest historical mysteries. Thank you for watching.